So for the last decade or so, I've been making these imaging rigs with desktop scanners, computing devices, custom battery packs, strapping them to my body, and then going out and traversing the landscape in order to perform images into existence. I might scan in lines across tables, swing over flowers, do pogo-like gestures over bricks, or just follow water currents over lilies in a pond. Every image is actually broken up into these vertical strips, which are adjacent times and spaces because of the relation of how the scanner beam moves across the surface of the glass, and then I move in and around and as a part of the environment. So what you're seeing is a kind of loop of stasis and then movement, the dynamism between my body technology and the landscape. An arm swinging or the wind blowing, this curious fly that was actually segmented because of how it was following the warmth of the scanner's light. Movement and change are present in every image. Now, about 1.5 years ago, I had this interesting idea that I was going to try and build a subaqueous rig so I could go scuba diving and scan a coral reef off the coast of Florida. I had never been scuba diving before in my entire life. I had never tried to build airtight or waterproof equipment. Apparently, there's this thing called marine rating, new to me. And yet, I thought this was a brilliant idea. Everything leaked. Everything broke. Nothing did what I wanted, but the results were unexpectedly amazing. What looks like an entire school of fish here is actually only 3 that kept swimming back and forth in front of the scanner. And what looks like clouds in the distance is actually an entire coral reef. As I started banging my box at the bottom of the sea, I got these amazing scratches on the surface of my scanner. Here you see reflected and refracted light alongside a distorted sea creature as it swam by, and I tried to capture it. As the box started leaking, I got bubbles with ripples and reefs. Here, I broke the surface and tried to capture a static mangrove, and those silver lines are actually waves crashing against the front of my scanner box. And one of my favorites, when you're deep underwater and you inhale, you actually float up because of the vacuous space in your lungs. And when you exhale, you float down. And if you couple that with the movement of the scanner beam, you get these beautiful sine waves, here shown with soft coral. I like to think that this series as a whole conveys a kind of implicit politics about how we all relate to and understand the world as a more than just human ecology. Of course, my rig leaked and broke. This work is a kind of collaboration with matter, which is always changing, always about to change, always moving with and against and around us. For me, it raises questions about how we take responsibility for the making and perception of our world through how we move and what we do. In the everyday, because of this work, now, I personally will pay more attention to things like plastic and light, water and gravity, life and non-life, how we impact them and how they impact us, and what we know and don't know about the relationships therein. What if we paid attention to these things? Their ruggedness, their beauty, their fragility, all the time. I call this approach to art thinking ecological aesthetics. This is some of my collaborative work in the background. Ecological aesthetics makes perceptible and sayable some of the intimate interconnections between humans, nature, and politics. People are always in process with the world around us. We're only a small part of intricate, complex, and ongoing systems. We are always more than the boundaries of what we feel, or know, or make. The best of this art frames and amplifies who and how we are with all of matter together. And more importantly, it suggests a kind of examination of that togetherness, asking how we might do things differently or better. Another work, Tweets in Space, is a collaboration with the San Francisco-based Scott Kildall, and here we beamed Twitter discussions from participants worldwide towards GJ667cc, the closest and most likely exoplanet that might support human-like biological life. Yes, I had to practice saying that. I kid you not, we hired this precise high-frequency, high-amplitude radio telescope and sent 30 minutes worth of voluntary tweets, all those with the hashtag tweets in space, 22 light years across the cosmos as a performance in New Mexico and online. But of course, tweets in space is not about aliens. It's about us. It calls attention to the forces of social media dialogue, the shallowness of only 140 characters at a time, and the depth created by all of those voices, tweeting, replying, retweeting, and conversing in hundreds of conversations all at once. In the various threads of ongoing conversation, and we averaged about 1 tweet per second, that's 1,800 of them in that half-an-hour performance, we got messages like, "Don't eat us," and "Jamie was here. What's your tax structure like?" And "We apologize for our behavior." But if you take a step back from that, it's fear and existentialism, curiosity and regret, 4 very human traits. Tweets in Space takes a microcosm of the entire internet world and all its complexness, richness, and absurdity and transmits those passing thoughts to everywhere and nowhere. Together and as a people, we asked questions, requested photos, and begged forgiveness for our flaws. This guy's still waiting for his response. But other than articles like "the" and "n", the most commonly used words, this was wonderfully surprising, were "please" and "love", followed by "hello", "here", "help", and "peace". All of these voices express feelings of togetherness, wonder and anxiety, interest and happiness, hope and cynicism, and more. I like to say that Tweets in Space wasn't just a public performance. We actually performed a public. So over the last decade and a half of artistic practice, as I've tried to emulate some of my own favorite artists, I've begun to see a bit of a pattern in that work. Seriously playful and playfully serious, I believe the job of artists is to make propositions for what could be. They ask us not only to look, but to look again. They invite us to rethink and remake what is. Art is, my colleague Zach Lieberman says, research and development for humanity. Now, I also believe that generosity is key to the practice of art. If art is a kind of invitation or conversation, you have to make people want to talk to you. You have to be nice. You have to ask questions. You have to be not only interesting, but interested in other work and what others say and do. So I believe in chit-chat, in discourse, in critique, and in humanity. I believe in art and design karma, in going around and coming around and sharing my tricks and sharing my code and sharing myself. Because as philosopher Jean-Luc Narcisse says, we are all always already implicated across each other. In practice, in production, in our very being, which is more accurately a being with. So the question is not why make art, because the best of art itself asks why, or why not. The question is not what does this artwork mean, but what does this artwork do? And more importantly, what are the implications in that doing? What can I do and how can I be? How and what can I change through my activities in and with and as a part of complex ecologies? So my interactive art more individually plays with how we move and are moved in this way. I'm going to show one piece from the body language suite. It's called Stuttering.
Comprehension is what we crave. In control, read me. Don't try that. Don't try that. Don't try that.
So what you're looking at is an asymmetrical grid of 34 invisible buttons, each filled with animated text and spoken word and triggered by our body-tracked outline. So if you move carefully in front of the piece, it stutters in a kind of audiovisual barrage. But if you move cautiously, carefully, if you stutter with your body, like this guy, both meanings and bodies emerge. So every single person I've ever seen play with this piece, whether it's a kid, my parents, an academic, or a dancer, every single one of them begins by waving their arms about, kicking and flailing and triggering everything in sight. And inevitably, eventually, every single one of them slows down into these like Buto and Tai Chi-like gestures, right? They start to listen. I love this guy. They start to listen with their bodies. It's a kind of embodied, right? right? It's all right, we got to move on. We're going to just laugh all day. It's a kind of embodied listening. They start to listen with care. So it's a fun work, again, but at the same time, it asks, what if we always attuned ourselves to our environments and each other and what we say in this way? What if we listened with our entire bodies and the space around us with this level of continuous care in Congress, in business meetings, with our families, in nature? What could that be and do? I like to think that stuttering actually has us practice listening and performing in the world with a little bit more care. Finally, one last work I want to show. It's called Given Time. It was based on Felix Gonzalez Torres's untitled Perfect Levelers. It's actually shown up there in the corner. His original is just 2 battery-operated clocks set to the exact same time, and slowly but surely, they fall out of sync, and then one dies and the other dies. That's a really bad impression of clocks, but you get the idea. But the piece, very simple, becomes utterly devastating when you find out that Gonzalez Torres made it the day that he learned his partner Ross was HIV positive. And all of a sudden, 2 clocks become a meditation on human relationships, bodily mortality, and time's inevitable flow. So I wondered, what would happen? What would happen if we removed bodies and we removed time from this work? What would that do? And I eventually made 2 avatars in the now mostly abandoned virtual world of Second Life, who are each other's avatars. They're permanently logged in on 2 separate computers running the software and forever gazing at and longing for one another across their virtual space, as well as across the actual space of a gallery as 2 larger-than-life-sized projections. What we see or experience when we go into this space as 2 huge facing videos. They're permanently logged in, and we see them through the eyes of the other, through the interface of the other. We're able to watch them breathing, see their hair blowing in the wind, hear faint sounds such as rushing water or birds crying out from the surrounding simulated environment. One of the most satisfying things for me has been how many people have told me what an intense experience this actually is for them. People spent hours giving their time to my versions of Ross and Felix, laughing, crying, lying down, shifting from foot to foot. But unlike the original piece, Given Time doesn't ask us to reflect on private grief or public yearning, on loss, death, or desire. Instead, it asks, when we've already given everything, our bodies, our desires, material things, and time, what then is left to give? And I believe that what's left is the only true gift, that of reciprocity, that of love. All we can give is the potential of our actions with and towards one another. And that brings me back to ecological aesthetics. Just think about the kinds of relationships and environments we'd have if we thought more about the relationships and environments we have. Thank you very much.